Welcome to the AM Update, Week in Review. A collection of the best moments from Aaron McIntire's Morning Update.
So late last week, it was announced. Here is President Trump's announcement. It's my great honor to report that the United States of America now fully owns and controls 10% of Intel, a great American company that has an even more incredible future. I negotiated this deal with Lip-Bu Tan, the highly respected chief executive officer of the company. The United States paid nothing for these shares, and the shares are now valued at approximately $11 billion. This is a great deal for America and also a great deal for Intel. Building leading-edge semiconductors and chips, which is what Intel does, is fundamental to the future of our nation. Make America great again. So, the United States is now a 10% shareholder in Intel. Why? Why are we doing this? I had the same question that a lot of people were asking. Heck, even Gavin Newsom hopped on this and started making fun of Trump for being a communist. Gavin Newsom did over the weekend. A lot of people, why are we doing this? This is the melding of big business and big government. This sounds an awful lot like fascism. And for one of the first times in this administration, I'm like, I got nothing. I don't know what we're doing here. Why it's necessary for the United States government to become a shareholder of Intel. Well, after doing a little bit of reading on this issue, we are in a very difficult spot when it comes to the issue of chip making and semiconductors. Yes, NVIDIA is an American company, but they do most of their manufacturing overseas. And when it comes to semiconductors, NVIDIA is a designer and outsources production elsewhere. So Intel designs and builds. It's a foundry. It actually produces the physical products. We just had a big deal earlier this year announced with TMSC or TSMC, which is that Taiwan chip making company. They're going to build factories in the United States. But when it comes to the designing of new leading edge chips, that's still done overseas. Very little of that being done in America. The one place it is being done, and not very well at all, that's part of the problem here, is with Intel. From what I have read, Intel has basically said, we're going to stop designing chips because we can't find any big customers for our chips. We're going to stop doing all the research and development for any chips because we can't find any big customers for the chips. It's kind of a big, if you're looking at it from the government's perspective, kind of a big deal when you have to purchase and rely upon designs for companies that exist overseas, not ones right here at home. So it's a pretty big problem when you're one of your only designers and producers of microchips domestically says we're throwing up our hands and waving the white flag. So what do? You become that company's biggest purchaser and biggest customer. And that's basically what this was over the weekend. This is picking a winner. Now, this is high technology. This is not like any other industry. There's just a crap load of money that you have to put into research and development when it comes to making microchips. It's very expensive, very risky. But I think the United States government, the Trump administration, just did the math and said, if we don't actually become and guarantee purchasing from this company, this domestic company, we're going to have to rely on China or other countries to do all of the research and development for leading edge chips, leading edge microchips. So yes, this is absolutely picking winners. It absolutely is. Now, in a perfect world, I would just change regulatory policy. I would just change tax policy to make it impossible for companies not to do business here. Make it impossible for them not to come here. Because we have such an environment that fosters innovation, research, and competition that they just can't afford not to do business here, design here, build here. But that's not the world we live in yet. So the best of a really bad set of decisions is what I think the Trump administration and their calculus was over the weekend in purchasing, or at least not, they didn't purchase, they said. They just took control of 10% of Intel. So that's the way I understand things unfolding here. Is that our leading chip maker, Intel, who has lagged behind for many, many years now. I'm starting to understand that's probably why Apple dumped them for making chips for their laptops and other computers, is because they were so far behind the curve in research and development. That's the calculus that went into this decision. So is it the old school, the classic definition of fascism, not what the blue-haired lefties scream out all the time? And increasingly, those with Trump derangement syndrome scream out all the time? Is this the melding of big business and big government? I don't know how you would come to any other conclusion. But it's the world that we live in. We have not lived in a real free market for a long, long time. And so you're left with crappy situations like this. Not absolving this at all, but I think maybe you're a little bit more informed now than those who are mindlessly typing in all caps, "This is fascism." Well, yes, but it's also a really bad situation all the way around.
You're listening to the AM Update, Week in Review. Follow on X and Instagram at Real AM Update.
Does Gavin Newsom actually have a chance in 2028 just to become the Democrat nominee? I don't think so. He's white and he's straight and he's a man. Well, a male, we'll put it that way. I heard some analysis about his prospects from David Sachs over at the All In podcast, who is a businessman, entrepreneur, smart dude. I thought was interesting, and I think we need to take into account. Listen to this.
Okay, well, what I would do to fight your playbook of empty promises is I would actually talk about the record of the candidate.
Exactly.
And I think we're talking about a state like California, which is thoroughly blue and has been run by Democrats now for a long time. And Gavin probably will be the nominee because I do think that his performative antics are working with the base. I mean, they want an
Totally
anti-Trump.
working.
But the way to attack this is to talk about the record here. So let's just go through some of the numbers. So as we all know, we pay the highest taxes in the country for the worst public services. Gavin's spending turned a $75 billion surplus into a $20 billion deficit in just a couple of years. And somehow none of that money went to fill the reservoirs or fire hydrants. And so we had entire neighborhoods burned down as a result. And they can't get permits to rebuild. California has the fourth largest economy in the world, so that's good. But we have the highest rates of poverty, homelessness, inequality, illiteracy, and wage stagnation. So yes, wage stagnation, JCal, is the highest in the country. And we have the third highest unemployment among the 50 states. We're second only to Hawaii in housing costs. So you want to talk about making promises to lower housing costs. But if you look at blue states like California, they're among the worst. We're the worst in energy costs, and we have the highest rate of both retail crime and frivolous lawsuits. And that's why businesses are moving out of the state. You may have seen that Bed Bath & Beyond said that even as they're opening 300 more physical stores, they're not going to return to California. And this just got the CEO mocked by Newsom because he never actually takes any of the criticism to heart. He just sort of deflects it. So until the Democrats, I think, confront why they really lost, okay? And it's not just because of the style of Trump. They want to just attribute it to Trump's style. But the reality is it's because of the policies.
Populist policies,
and it's about the record. And until they're willing to confront those things and change their policies, then I think they're going to continue losing.
One of those ways that you would actually confront why you lost is by recognizing that you are very unrelatable. That's why I said yesterday with that Politico story about the blacklisted words that a Democrat think tank is urging every single Democrat stop saying all of these Marxist affiliated words that blue hairs learned in their humanities class at the university. Stop using these words. That's why I think that was maybe the first attempt at self-awareness from the Democrats post-2024. That's why I'm looking to see whether or not we actually see some of that change in language from lefty of lefties like AOC and Ilhan Omar and others like that. Because everything you just heard David Sachs said there is true. So if we even get past with Gavin Newsom the fact that he's a white straight male, he's still got a record. And David Sachs' analysis was, other than all this, he's got a wonderful singing voice. The Democrat Party, fundamentally, is on a crazy train. There have been a few attempts from some of the would-be conductors to say, hey, we got to get off this crazy train. But so far, efforts to jettison some of the more, let's call it, inconvenient aspects of their coalition, like the trans those efforts have largely been doomed. You may think of Curious George as being a harmless, maybe even fun storybook TV show for your toddlers as they grow up. And I don't really have a problem with the old books at all. But recently we allowed Ben, during the scant amount of screen time that he gets, to start watching the TV show Curious George. And boy howdy, it may not have all the bells and whistles and just absolute stimulation of some of the more modern and more flashy animated kids' TV programs. It may have the appearance of a TV program that's not going to be uber stimulating for your toddlers. But let me tell you, I think it is one of the most subversive, and I'm not sure if they meant to do it this way or they just tripped and fell into this. It's one of the most subversively terrible TV shows for kids ever. The few episodes I've seen, having it on in the background, here's basically the plot of every single episode of the Curious George kids TV show. The man in the yellow hat gives George very clear instructions of what to do and what not to do. George, at the first opportunity, when the man in the yellow hat turns his back, does exactly the opposite of what the man in the yellow hat told him not to or to do. He does the exact opposite. He then proceeds to raise hell every single episode. And at the end of every single episode, there's never any accountability whatsoever. In fact, I saw one episode where he messed up some dinosaur fossils or something like that. Just raised hell, did not follow instructions, did not obey. And instead, at the end, getting accountability, no, they said, hey, you raising hell actually fixed this problem that we had. It's one of the worst programs you could show a toddler. I told Bella all about this, and she's like, okay, sure, we can give this a try. You know, Ben was getting really squirrely for about a week and a half, 2 weeks, when it was very hot and we had a little bit more screen time than what we typically would do with a 3-year-old. And so I said, let's find something else. If we're going to do screen time, let's find something else. So we found something else. Daniel Tiger's Clubhouse or whatever it is. And let's just say there's been a little bit of change in Ben. So, Curious George, one of the most subversively, just awful toddler TV shows. Word to the wise, do with this what you will.
You're listening to the AM Update, Week in Review. Follow on X and Instagram at Real AM Update.
You have probably heard the news unless you're living in a hole, and yes, I am talking about this. Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce are engaged. Swift shared Tuesday on Instagram, quote, your English teacher and your gym teacher are getting married. Don't know what that is. I guess it's some sort of Swiftie inside joke. In the photos the pop superstar shared, Kelce could be seen on one knee as Swift caressed his face during the intimate moment. And of course, this is happening right before football season, as I'm sure many have noted. Just in time for more close-ups at Arrowhead Stadium for now fiancé Taylor Swift. Now, on a serious note, you can do all the joking you want to, and a lot of them have been really good. My favorite was the one where saying that Travis Kelce should make, Harrison Butker a groomsman. That way Harrison Butker can walk somebody like Blake Lively down the aisle. I think that would be hilarious. I don't think that's going to happen, but that would be hilarious. There have been a lot of good memes, a lot of good jokes coming out of this. But here's why you should cheer for this to actually come to bear good fruit. And you should be cheering for this marriage to last a long time. And you should cheer for them to be happy. And I mean this very sincerely and seriously. Taylor Swift, right or wrong, and yeah, it's probably a sign of a dying culture when somebody like her has so much influence and sway over peers in her age group, and even younger. But she does have a lot of influence on young women. And do you understand, if this is a happy, healthy marriage that produces children, do you have any idea what that would do, not only to marriage rates, but birth rates in this country? That if that if she actually puts together a picture of a good, healthy, strong marriage, I'm not sure if she's capable, I'm not sure if this pair is capable of it, but if she's prepared to actually do that, that would actually be an example of good common grace, that the favor that God even shows on the unrighteous, on the unregenerate, I should say. We're all unrighteous. That would be a massive boon for this culture. Now, it's only a boon in as much as those who maybe follow Taylor Swift's example enter into a marriage maybe for the wrong reasons, but then discover, wow, this is so much better than it was being single. I understand why marriage is important now. There will be stories like that. There will be. Man, I'm going to have a kid just like Taylor Swift. And then you realize this is a huge responsibility. I can't do this alone. Where would I go? Where would I go for support? Where would I go to make sure that I'm actually bringing up this kid in the right way? Do you understand the opportunity the church would have? I'm not the only one who believes that marriage rates will explode. Brad Wilcox at the National Marriage Project at the University of Virginia, he's a very serious academic. He said that marriage rates will explode. It will. So I know it's annoying. I know every Sunday it's just more Taylor Swift, more Travis Kelce on your TV screens. Get them off the screen. No, I know it's annoying, but you should be rooting for this marriage to be healthy, strong, and for them to be happy and bring children into this world. I think there's a massive opportunity culturally if that comes to pass. Of course, putting all this aside, I'm pretty sure the plan, as I saw a few people post yesterday, pretty sure the plan was for Travis Kelce to propose after the Super Bowl last year, or earlier this year, I should say. And of course, that didn't happen because my Chiefs got their you-know-what handed to them. Let's talk about our poll of the week. Yes, I made us talk about Tay-Tay and Trav. I asked you, assuming they have a happy, healthy marriage, what do you think is the most likely cultural outcome? I gave you 4 options. A, an immediate marriage boom. B, a future baby boom. C, nothing changes the status quo. Or D, something negative happens. In 4th place is B, a future baby boom. 10.6% say that's the most likely cultural outcome. In 3rd place is A, an immediate marriage boom. 19% say that's the most likely cultural outcome. In 3rd place, something negative is in 2nd place, I should say, at 20.6%. 20.6, 1 in 5 think that something negative actually is going to happen culturally from this. And number 1, in 1st place, status quo, nothing changes, 49.7%. Let's get to what you had to say. Alex says, I had to Google who the hell these people are. I don't care. Can we get the Somalis out of Michigan, please? Yeah, fair enough, Alex. Trevor says, I have no clue what you're on about. Trevor, I clicked on your bio. You're from Oklahoma, not Britain. And I do sense this, I'm so cool, I don't know what you're talking about. Guys, it's the most, you sound like a Luddite. You sound like you're proud to be ignorant. This is the most, probably the biggest cultural, and I don't want to talk about it either, but it's the biggest pop cultural story in quite some time. I don't talk that much pop culture. Maybe I probably should talk more pop culture, but it's the biggest pop culture story in our country right now. Kevin says, if you stare at the poll long enough and listen to Something Wicked This Way Comes by Starset, it really comes together. Ha ha ha. That's really funny, Kevin. Jim says, I believe the status quo will remain for some time. This specific marriage will have zero impact on culture at large. However, with Gen Z leaning more conservative, we may see their marriage numbers overtake millennials if they enter their late 20s and early 30s. Jay Breezy says, I don't think it will lead to a swell of marriages and babies unless she speaks out and talks about how good marriage and children are. Do I expect that? No. I believe it'll be a big missed opportunity to praise families. You're probably right, Jay Breezy. Unless Taylor comes out and says, man, even I was surprised by how challenging, but cool marriage is. Yeah, you're probably right. Gary says you need another option for guys being forced to grow a Tom Selleck-style mustache. Thank you, Travis. Ryan says marriage and babies will boom, and then they will get divorced. That will also boom. Also, I should have put that as an option, but unfortunately, you're probably correct. BY says something negative because we're not allowed to have nice things, and Victor says, "What are you talking about?" Again, I'm so cool because I'm so ignorant about pop culture. No, you're a moron, Victor. You're a moron.
This has been the AM Update Week in Review. The AM Update will be back on Monday and every weekday at 4 a.m. Eastern Time.